Welcome to another edition of the Artist Spotlight Show with your friend Russell K. And we are being brought to you by Music Dreams USA Radio Worldwide, also Rise Up Sports Unlimited, and my man Stephen Brady with Blue Shamrock Music. And on today's show, we've got a really cool artist on the show for you here this evening. And we're going to get to know her real well. We'll find out about her music. We'll find out about her musical journey. We'll find out any really cool, interesting facts she'd like to share with us. Again, if you're an upcoming aspiring artist, please reach out to Stephen Brady, and we'd love to have you on our show. Our show is becoming so popular, it's worldwide. And so we're doing well. And again, so without any further ado delay, let's go ahead now and meet our special guest. And again, she's all the way from Australia. And she's a country western singer, and she's amazing. Her name is Allie Jean. And so, without any further delay, let's bring our special guest on the show. Allie, good evening. Well, it's good evening for where I'm at, and it's probably good morning to where you are. How are you today?
I am excellent. Thank you, Russell. Thanks so much for having me on the show with your listeners. I am stoked to be here.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun. So I know it's your first time on the Artist Spotlight Show. So I just got to let you know, expect the unexpected.
Got it. Right, I'm Australian. I'm pretty sure that's how we roll. So we'll be fine.
So how's the weather up there in beautiful Australia? Are you guys in winter right now?
We are, but it's actually, and like I live in like the most miserable corner of Australia. Like it's always like changeable wet and rainy weather, but it's actually beautiful sunshine this morning. So cannot complain. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Well, there you go. When you get done with the interview, you can go out and enjoy that beautiful weather.
Absolutely.
Well, let's start off our show this evening. Can you kind of like share with our listeners, how did your musical journey begin with you?
Yeah, great question. I think like a lot of people, I've sort of been immersed in music since I can remember. Like I can't remember a time in my life where music wasn't a part of it and I wasn't doing something musical. You know, my dad played and sang, but my mum just listened, but there was always music around. So even when I was a little kid, there was just this massive eclectic collection of music that I was always hearing or always listening to. And when I got a bit older, you know, I'd start to choose my own music and develop my own taste, but it's really just something I've always been around. And you know, probably started singing along to CDs and tapes back in the day when I was little, and then picked up various instruments along the way, and now here we are. It took me a while to find my genre, but I think I've been pretty influenced by a really wide range of music.
So when did you get your first break?
Probably about 15. So there's a select entry music school here where I live in Australia, and I auditioned as a singer and I got accepted in. So that was suddenly this massive thing where I moved. I was living in the country at that point in time, and I moved to the city, and suddenly I was exposed to all these really talented musicians and playing gigs and playing shows with these people who already had established music careers. And that was such a formative experience for me. So probably about then, I would say, I went from being a kid in the country who liked to sing to being a kid in the city who suddenly was singing for really large audiences. So that was probably a pretty big turning point for me.
So where we are, as we're on our show this evening here, where do you think you are in your career right now as it relates to music?
Yeah, I think we're building. So the song that you'll hear later on the show and the other songs that you'll hear, they're off the first album that, you know, I've written and really come up with as part of my own rather than someone else's project. And we've got another single to go after this one, and then we'll release the album. But we're really at the point where we're building listeners, building fans, and looking to refine and find a style and a voice as part of that. So I think we're on the up would be how I would describe it.
How would you describe your musical style?
That's a really interesting question. I think like a lot of first albums, if you listen to the whole thing, you hear a really wide collection of influences and genres across it. But someone who critiqued our first single described it as country grunge. And so that's what I'm going with when I describe it.
Country grunge. That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah, I hadn't heard it before, but I'm going with it.
There you go. I'll second that motion for you.
Yeah, thanks.
So, talk to me about your songwriting. I mean, when you're in the studio recording songs, is it from personal experiences? I know, and I feel like I've asked this question like a million times, but it looks like nowadays with artists, they have these computers out now with all these words, and then all the artists do
Mm.
is they take the words and they actually match the beats of the song to the words, and that kind of helps them put the song together. Then you have artists who actually write from their personal experiences. What does songwriting look like for you?
Yeah, look, I'm definitely in the second camp. I can't say I've ever used a computer generated thing to write music or do anything like that. So it's cool that people do it, but it's definitely not something that I've done, and it's definitely not my process. So I think for me, songs either come from personal lived experience or they come from observation of others' experience, or sometimes they come from a little bit of both. But my songwriting method, based on what you've just said, I would say is quite old fashioned. So I will sit down with a guitar and an idea and I will thrash it out. And sometimes I'll only have a chorus for weeks and weeks and weeks. And sometimes the whole thing will write itself in an hour and a half. So it's very varied and very different, but very much that, coming up with the riffs at the same time you're coming up with the lyrics, and the melody sort of finds itself in there. So that's my process.
Awesome. Have you met anybody like really famous in the country scene thus far?
I was lucky enough to spend some time with Gillian Welsh. I don't know if you and your listeners would be aware of her. She's pretty awesome in this sort of bluegrass country scene when she was in Australia a few years ago. And it was probably only a 10-minute conversation, but it was pretty impactful on me. So she would be the one that I would put up there. And then definitely some Australian artists I've been lucky to spend some time with. So people are pretty generous, I think, in the music industry, which is lovely.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Don't do anything that you wouldn't put your name to.
Tell me more about that.
So I think, and this is something that's really held true for me in the creation of this album. So we wrote 10 songs, and then I listened to it and I thought half of these are not authentic. They're not me. Like I was trying to project something or be something that I thought people wanted to hear. And in the end, I just couldn't put my name to it. It wouldn't have been real. And so I scrapped half the album and started again. And I think that refinement and that confidence in saying there is nothing on this album that I wouldn't put my name to and I wouldn't stand behind and I wouldn't be proud to have been a part of. I think that's a huge thing for me. I think it is so easy when the pressure is on to write and create and produce to settle for the mediocre. And I'm really passionate about if you wouldn't stand behind it 100%, then it's not good enough. It hasn't met the bar. So that's probably the best advice I've gotten, I think, and I try and live by that.
Awesome. Now let's move forward. Let's talk about your album. Let's talk about your
Yes.
songs and a recent song that we just talked about moments ago. Burn the Big House Down. Let's start off with
Yeah.
that song. How did that song come together for you?
Yeah, so that song was probably the one that was written most quickly on the album. So I reckon I probably wrote it in about 90 minutes. So it was very quick, and it came from, and I know everyone's experience of the pandemic was different, but here in Australia, we had really significant lockdowns. People were really restricted. A lot of people were losing their jobs, particularly people who were in my family and friendship group. So farmers were really struggling. People who were, already sort of up against it with the cost of living, they were really feeling it. And it seemed to be this situation where if you were a well-ration, you were fine. If you were a bank or a supermarket or any of these things, you were dandy. But for the people who weren't, this rank that they held dear, and this song really came about as a reflection of that. And it's a pushback, it's a rebellion, it's a little bit of anarchy in there, and it was just an expression of what felt really unfair at that time, and probably still does in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, the pandemic, who would have thought that would have came, and when it came, I don't think no one was really ready for it. And look all the, much to your point, look all the havoc that it caused. I mean, as you just mentioned, right? Companies shutting down, people losing their jobs, and all of a sudden, the work from home became the thing to do. People had to work from home, and the list goes on and on and on. So yeah, I mean, we were a part of that as well, and it was definitely something. I just want to forget about it. And, you learn from it, you move on, and just keep on chasing that dream, right? Are you there?
Yes, I'm still here. I think we've got a little bit of an internet blip, but I'm still here. Can you hear me?
Okay, good deal. All
Yeah, cool.
right. I can hear you now. Yes. Yeah, I can definitely hear you. So let's continue to talk about your album. So what are some other songs on the album that really stand out to you?
Yeah, so this Burn Big House Down is our fourth single. So we've released 3 prior to that one, and it's a 10-track album. So we're going to release one more single, and then we're going to go to the album launch. I think they all stand out in different ways. So Burn Big House Down is definitely one of my favorites on the album, and something that really has that kind of almost southern rock grunge element to it, which I'm really into. So I'm really enjoying having that track out and about. It's been out for about 2 weeks now, so that's really good. Our first single was Gasoline on Fire, which is kind of a rock country, kind of much more upbeat, much quicker. It's got a really funky guitar riff at the start, which got listeners really engaged, and still has done exceptionally well, which is pretty incredible for a new artist with a new single. So that was really good. And then Pretty on the Outside and Last Man Standing, which are the 2 middle singles, are sort of much more country pop kind of numbers. So there's a little bit of variety in there for listeners who like the lighter side of things. And the rest of the album's similar. So it's a mix of a whole different styles, ranging from that country grunge, as we talked about, all the way through to more traditional country tracks. But they all have different themes and messages that they're trying to send. And I think the variety is one of the strengths of the album. You can sort of hear we haven't just rewritten the same song 10 times in a slightly different way. And I think, to me, that goes back to that authenticity piece. And the album's called This Drink Is for the Hard Times, and that's the middle track, number 5 on the album. And that's this sort of quite massive country and anthem type song, which I think is just perfect for a title track. So I'm really looking forward to the album coming out and people being able to hear the rest of the songs as well.
Well, speaking about that, how can our listeners get in contact with you, and how can they download your amazing music?
Yeah, so we're on all the usual platforms. So you can find me on Instagram, Ali Jean Music Australia, Facebook the same. It's called X now, not Twitter, but whatever that platform is. We've got a website, which is alijeanmusic.com.au, because, of course, we're in Australia, so we've got the AU at the end. And we're also on Spotify and YouTube as well. So all of the usual platforms that you would find if you just put in Ali Jean will come up there. So we're pretty easy to find these days.
So I'm a new fan, and I'm super excited to come to your show tonight. What type of show can I expect?
Yeah, so we're really lucky. I don't know how well your listeners or Australia, but I live in Melbourne, which is a city down sort of the bottom of Australia, and it has a thriving music scene. So even post-COVID, it's really bounced back. There are gigs every night. So during most weeks, you will find us playing at bars and pubs and clubs around Melbourne. We're really lucky to have a wide variety of venues that we play at. We play, most weeks, which is awesome. And then we also go on tours. So you might find us out in country Australia, somewhere in New South Wales, in other states. But most commonly, you'll find us gigging in and around Melbourne at the moment.
So let's talk about your show. So I'm coming to see your show tonight. What type of show can I expect?
Oh, I hope you'd expect a lot of fun. It's generally high energy. We've got a pretty kick-ass live band. So we've got really big sound, which will fill the room, which is really good. It's high energy. It's upbeat. It's generally a lot of fun. And we generally have pretty good crowds there. So we've been really lucky in the support that we have. So you can expect a fun night. It won't be anything too heavy. You won't go home, depressed about the state of the world, but I'd be willing to guarantee you'll have a good time.
Awesome. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you while you were on stage?
Oh, there's been a few. It didn't happen to me when I was on stage, but it was one of those moments that you just wanted to look away from. So I went to the gig of a friend not so long ago, and they had one of those sort of domino effects with the equipment. So it started with someone knocking over, I think it was just like something trivial, like a mic stand. And then it fell onto something else, which fell onto an amp, and all this stuff just ended up cascading into the audience. So it wasn't particularly funny for them at the time, but watching it, it just looked like a scene out of a comedy, because just everything from the stage just started to slide into the audience. So that would probably be up there, I think. I haven't had too many wild moments on stage. Most people are pretty good. I mean, You get the odd drink thrown on you and those sort of things, but it's all in good fun. I don't think I've had anything that would meet the standard of a wild ride necessarily, but watching all that equipment cascade into the audience was definitely up there.
I mean, we've done so many different interviews. That's pretty cool to share that with us. I don't think I've ever heard an artist tell me that before.
Well, there you go. Nothing if not honest.
That's right. Hey, there's always a first time for everything, right?
Absolutely.
So, I mean, with upcoming aspiring artists, as you know, our show is about supporting upcoming aspiring artists, just like yourself. Now, for the artists that are watching now, that will be watching later, what type of advice can you give them to help them to carry on to chase their dreams?
I think I would say, and this was advice given to me, so I can't claim it, but I think it's really solid, is don't chase success. Don't try and write something or be something which you think is what people want to hear. Focus on excellence. Focus on being the best artist you can be. Set really high standards for yourself in terms of what you write and create and produce and release, because everything that you do then comes back against your name. And so don't ever try and be something for someone else. Just be the best version of yourself as an artist you can be, and that will get you the furthest. And I think I would also say pick who you listen to, because every single person has an opinion, has ideas, has something they want to see you do or not do. And that's good, but at some point you have to pick the people who you're like, yeah, I really value your advice, and the other stuff I might just take on notice a bit. So I think that would be my two bits of advice. Chase excellence, not success, and choose who you listen to.
You know what my saying is? You can please some of the people some of the time, but you can't please all the people all the time.
I would agree, and I would even add to that, I don't even think you should try.
I love it. And so, how did you and Steven, well, as you know, Blue Shamrock Music, we are partners in doing this show, which is just doing real well right now. How did you and Steven get together, to help you out?
Yeah, so Stephen's brilliant, and we're so lucky to have him in our corner. So he's been a distributor for all our singles so far, and he's much more engaged and involved in this one, and we've sort of changed the partnership and how we work, and it's just been so fantastic to have his advice and have his lead in and have his promotion of the music on this latest single, Burn Your Big House Down, and we're really seeing the rewards from it. So we're really lucky that he's interested enough and supportive of our music and wants to be a part of it. And as you know, he's quite amazing with the networks he has and the things that he can set up. And, here I am talking to you in Melbourne, and you're on the other side of the world, and Stephen made that happen. So we've been working together for a while, but this is the closest working partnership we've had on the most recent single.
Awesome. And so, since we're on the topic of talk about artists and everything, you have the artists up in the United States and you have the artists up in Australia. Would it not be a cool idea if maybe if the artists from the United States and Australia can somehow maybe one day work together and maybe collaborate on some stuff? What are your thoughts about that?
Look, I think collaboration is always valuable. I think if you look back at the history of country music, it came from collaboration. You had all these people arrive in the US and other parts of the world with different types of music, from Ireland to Cajun music to all these other things and traditional music, and they put it together and it became country and Western music. And so I think collaboration is at the heart of our genre. And I think the US and Australia, there is so much cultural alignment. There's things that's different, but there's also a lot of shared common ground and common experiences. And I think that would be such a rich backdrop to which to make music and collaborate. But I don't think you can ever collaborate too much. I think you always learn something new. You come up with something new. And I think that's what music's all about. And it's certainly what country music's all about.
So since we're talking about country music now, what are your thoughts about country music today?
I think country music has to be one of the most sustained genres of music when you look back from the time that it began to where we are now in 2024. And I think the reason for that is that it's always finding a way to express narrative and express emotion and express theme in a way that connects with people. So, you have all these wacky and wild versions of country music now, like country rap and all these other things. And it might not always be everyone's cup of tea, but what it is doing is continuing to tell stories and tell people's authentic experience. And people keep listening because they want music that reflects to that. So I think country music was around 100 years ago, and I think it'll still be around 200 years from now, because there's something about it that just invites people to feel seen and heard when they listen to that music.
Do you actually like the way country music is today?
I like some of it.
What parts don't you like?
So there are things that are just not my cup of tea, and I'm not saying they're bad. They're just not what I would choose to listen to. So that sort of country rap type thing is probably not my thing. If I was going to listen to rap music, I'd go do that separately. So I think probably things like that are less ideal for me. I also think sometimes you hear new artists coming through, and I'm particularly going to call out female artists, but maybe you do with men as well, where you can hear that they're trying to be someone or trying to emulate someone or copy someone. And I just think, you've got your own voice and your own stories and your own experiences, and I want to hear that. I want to hear what that is for you. I don't want to hear you try and sound like Miranda Lambert or Carrie Underwood or anything like that. I want to know what you're about. And so I think, I'm sure that's not unique to country, but I always think it's a shame when people aren't really expressive of who they are in their music. And I think you hear that a lot with young artists. But I also think we've got some really brilliant, talented people coming through. And country music is so accessible, both as an artist and as a listener. And so you have this really wide net of people who are engaged and interested. And that's pretty cool. And there's always variety and people coming up with new things. So overall, I think we're in good shape.
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. I mean, I love your outlook on the country scene as well, and I kind of feel the same way you do. And kind of like what you mentioned earlier in the interview about, just be yourself. Follow your own dreams, be yourself, and be creative. And as you mentioned, right, whatever you do is also going to come back on your name anyway. So try to be who you are. And as we wind down our show this evening, are there any thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners?
Oh, I think what I would say is thank you for your support of artists like myself. It really means the world when people go and check out a song and they listen, and you think that's one more person I've reached. And if it's not for them and they move on, that's okay. But I love the idea that people are generous enough with their time to give new music a go. And I think what I would say is I'm always interested in people's thoughts, people's ideas, people's feedback. If you want to get in touch, hit me up. Like, I'm so interested in what people think and how the music is or isn't connecting to them. So, don't be shy. If you hear our tracks and you like it or you don't like it or you have a thought, you know where we are. And I think that generosity of spirit is what will keep the music industry going years into the future. So I would really just like to say thank you and keep listening, I think.
Awesome. Final question here for you. It relates to the music industry as a whole. What are your thoughts about the music industry as a whole as we speak tonight?
Yeah, really good question. I think the music industry, like pretty much every other creative industry, has been through a lot with COVID. And I think it will take time and it won't emerge the same as it was before COVID. It will evolve and it will be different. And we're already seeing that huge reliance on media platforms like Spotify, like social media to communicate music, because that's what we had to do during the pandemic and people liked it and they engaged with it. So I think how we're engaging with music is different. I think in terms of the scene generally, or the industry generally, I've been really lucky. So I haven't had any negative experiences. I haven't had anyone who's been, out to mess me around in any way. I haven't had anyone be unkind. I've certainly had feedback, which I really appreciated. But overall, my experience of it has been it's an incredibly generous group of people who are really, really passionate about what they do, and they almost have this sort of living desire inside them to share music and to be part of it. And it's something really special when you're part of that community. I know people who've had less than good experiences, and I'm really mindful that those are out there, and I certainly don't want to pretend that doesn't exist. But from my experience, it's been a real privilege to be part of that community, and I learn from it every day. So it's in good shape as far as I'm concerned.
What about the music revenue sharing? What do you think about that?
I think in every industry, there are people who are looking to profit from others. And it's kind of a little bit what the song's about, right? So I think there are people in the music industry who are out there to rip off artists, who see it as a commercial exchange, who think I'll take years of your hard work and I'll translate it into 0.03 of a cent for every listen, and that seems okay to me. So you always have those people. But I don't see them as representative of the music industry. I see them as, very often these corporate giants, these media giants who are looking to take advantage and will take advantage. And we've been lucky that we've got some great artists who are established enough to stand up to that and say, actually, I'm not going to do it. And I think for people in those positions who are able to do that, that's really awesome. And that's the spirit of the actual music scene. But I think you'll always look to have people to take advantage, and those corporate giants are always going to be out there. But that's not who we are as a music scene, and it will change because people will stop accepting it. We've just got to be a bit patient, I think.
I love that. I love that because we ask that question all the time, and you get many different answers on that. But I loved your answer. That was like to perfection. And anything else you'd like to share as we bring our show to a close?
No, I don't think so. Just keep listening. We've got another single coming up and then an album coming out. We would love to have some of your listeners jump on board with our music. I'm going to keep tuning into this show because I've listened to a few before and I've had so much fun today. So thank you to you and all your listeners. It's been a pleasure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we appreciate your support, and we'll have you back for part 2. I mean, you were awesome this evening.
Let's hope so. I would love that.
Hey, I got to tell you, Music Dreams USA Radio, we're actually hiring right now. And we actually have artists that actually work for us. It's a true story. Shauna Brown, who's actually one of my, she's my morning show host. And she came from the same seat you did. And Jessie Shea from Australia. She actually does our music news on the Russell K. Alexa and Shauna Brown morning show, which you can listen to weekdays, Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Eastern. And with that being said, you, my friend, are going to open up our morning show tomorrow with your song. And we're going to play your song. That'll kick off our morning show. And, so hopefully you can listen and
I will be listening in. That's awesome, Russell. Thank you.
Yeah. And I'll say hello to you on the radio. And I can't thank you enough. I've had so much fun. That's what I love about this show. We meet so many amazing artists, and I just love doing this. It's just something I just love to do. And I want to thank you personally for the opportunity of doing that. And again, special thank you to Stephen Brady and Blue Shamrock Music, and DeAndre the Torch Robinson with the Rise Up Sports Unlimited, another sponsor on our show as well. My friend, until the next time, you take care, you be safe, and continue to make music great.
Thank you, and I will see you and your listeners next time. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. And that was Allie Jean, a latest artist, again, being brought to you by Blues Shamrock Music and Mr. Stephen Brady. It was a pleasure to have her on the show this evening. What a great conversation we had. And don't forget to check her out. Make sure you go to her website, purchase her music, listen to her. And if you have any, just like she said in the interview, if you have any ideas, please let her know. And again, thank you so much for listening this evening. Don't forget to tell your family and friends about us each and every Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. It is the Music Dreams USA Radio Artist Spotlight Show, again, being brought to you by Blue Shamrock Music and also Rise Up Sports Unlimited. Until the next time, it's your friend Russell K. wishing you and yours a very pleasant good evening, and thank you so much for watching.